If you clicked on this video, you're probably in your 30s and feel like you're falling behind. You're constantly panicking and anxious about where you're at in life. You feel disappointed in yourself and often compare yourself to others, asking yourself, why them and not me? I want you to stop, take a deep breath. You need to hear this. Hi, my name is Dr. Florencia and I'm a psychologist and a life coach. I offer therapy and life coaching to women who are in a very difficult stage in their life, whether they are figuring out where they are at in life, whether they are dissatisfied with their careers, whether they are newly single and wanting to be partnered but have no clue where to start or what to do, where to go. They're going through a very difficult transitional phase in their lives. Many of the women that I see often cry themselves to sleep at night, feeling hopeless and depressed over them not being where they're at in life, them not feeling like they are where they should be. For example, not getting the promotions that they want, even though they've worked incredibly hard for it, or not getting the pay rise that they deserve, or not having an exciting life because of finances. In today's video, we're going to have an honest conversation about what can contribute to this, why you're feeling the way that you feel, and what you can do to change your mindset. You're not where you thought you would be at 30 because the life script you were sold was based on a false narrative. It was based on a generation probably that is vastly different from the current generation, and that creates unrealistic expectations, and therefore not meeting those expectations then makes you feel like you are a failure, and you then internalize that and make that a narrative that you identify with, which can cause a downward spiral for yourself. It can cause significant levels of distress, and it is compounded by what you see in movies, what is being romanticized in movies, what is shown on social media, or highlighted rather on social media, what is being shared or reinforced in conversations, right? So what are the narratives that people tell each other? More often than not, we carry a lot of shame. So we tend to put our highlight reels, let's say, at the forefront, and we are not honest about the struggles that we're facing, which then creates an unrealistic overview of what your path is or what your neighbor's path looks like. So you're then comparing yourself to a standard that is not the complete picture, which is completely doing yourself a disservice by doing that. The reality check is the world is in a state where people don't even know what they're doing half of the time. I feel like everyone is winging it, and those who are very lucky and those who have got certain resources are winning, and the rest of us are just plowing through the mess, right? So that is not a reflection on you. It is a reflection of the current state of affairs, the current state of the world, the current culture that we found ourselves in. The economy is tough, and that is a real thing. The dynamic of relationships have shifted. What the roles are within a relationship have shifted. The roles that we have at one time presumed to be our roles in relationships have shifted if we're talking about heteronormative relationships. So we are figuring out what works for me and what doesn't work for me, right? And it can differ per person. It is a very individual thing. But because we have established a human habit, right? It's a survival mechanism of comparing ourselves to others, because that is how we get data and narratives and goals to hold on to. We then question ourselves and question what is meant for us. But again, because people are not always completely 100% honest about where they're at and what had to happen in order for them to get there, and what is currently happening in order for them to sustain what they have, you feel like you are behind and you feel like you're failing. So I have a client of mine, her name is Katie, and she, in my opinion, does really well. She has a job, a 9-to-5 job, and she enjoys her job. But she's been in this role for a while now, for over 6 years, and she has been working towards getting this promotion. And for whatever reason, it has always fallen through, which made her feel demoralized and made her feel like she was wasting a lot of her time. Whereas her peers are, in her opinion, doing better than her. They are in management positions. They are earning a really good living, so they are financially comfortable, whereas she is just about scraping by. So she doesn't have the finances to look after herself that well. She doesn't have the finances to do what she really wants to do, which is traveling and having all of these exciting and enjoyable experiences, right? because she's constantly having to worry about money. She can't invest as much into her self-care, so her well-being is also taking a hit. And meanwhile, as we all know, inflation continues to rise, the cost of living continues to rise. So that in and of itself creates pressure and stress. So understandably, she is in a state where she feels very lost and she does not really know what to do or where to go from here. So part of our work was thinking about her mindset and why she feels stuck in the first place. Why does she not feel like she can move away from this particular job or from this particular company? And we had to flesh that out together. We then thought about what her value systems are. What does she find important? Not just at work or in her career, but as a person. What does she want to prioritize? And once we've established that, we were able to map out a life for her and practical steps that she can implement in order to move closer to those value systems, in order to weave in those value systems into her day-to-day, so that her day-to-day feels fulfilled and she feels like she is accomplishing things for herself, and her values were no longer aligned or no longer tied into the company that she worked for or the role that she was in. Eventually, we then came to a stage where she realized that actually, yes, she is a loyal person, and that is why she stuck to this specific company for all of this time. And she had developed really good relationships, or so she thought, at work, so she didn't want to let them down. But so ultimately we had to decide what is best for her, what is the most important to her, what makes her feel the most fulfilled, and lead with that. So you may have guessed it, she handed her notice in and she left. And she got a different job and she now feels a lot better. She's earning more. She's able to be more creative within this current role. And now she has more finances to invest back into herself and do what she likes. Now, the second point is unpacking the truth behind what being behind is in your 30s. And you may have guessed it based on what we've discussed so far, right? We need to deconstruct what progress looks like for us. What does it really mean to be on track? And you need to be honest about what has been on your path so far. So in my example, I had to live out what is typically part of your 30s in my 20s, because I chose to go down a academic route that was very intensive and very long. Getting a doctorate is no joke. So I had to do a undergrad, I got a scholarship to do a master, so that is 4 years back to back. I then had to take 2 years out to get some work experience and develop my skills before I got on to the doctorate. So the doctorate was 3 years, not including the write-up year. So all in all, that is 4 years of my life that I had to dedicate to my doctorate. So the bottom line is that I was studying or working towards my final degree over a span of 10 years. Not a lot of people do that. So at the time when I was nose deep into my books, my friends were going out, having fun, traveling, having new experiences, meeting new people. I had to pretty much socially isolate myself for extended periods of time. So now I was lucky enough that at the start of my studies, I was traveling quite a bit because of a ex-partner of mine, which is a whole other story for another day. So that situation enabled me to travel and see parts of the world that I never thought I would travel to at that age. So luckily I did have a bit of a balance at the start. For the vast majority of the time, all I was focusing on was work and university. That's it. So of course, if that is where my focus lies, of course, I am not going to be at certain stages where my peers are at the moment, which is being able to buy a house, have children. That was just not my situation, and I had to be real with myself about that and not beat myself up for it because I chose a career or a career path that was intensive, and a lot of the time our experiences are also tied into luck and being at the right place at the right time. So that just wasn't the case for me, and I had to accept that. And that is the case for a lot of my clients. Like, sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time. And that is out of your control. Another thing that you have to consider is that progress isn't linear. You will have setbacks, you will have challenges, you will need to pivot, you will need to be resilient, and that is okay. That is the richness of what life has to offer. And it's not a reflection on you, but it does require you to be resilient and be open and have honest conversations with yourself. And that ties into looking at what are you exposed to in your current life? Or are you surrounded by people who take on challenges? What is it that you can learn from them? What is it that they can teach you? What examples do you have in your life? Are you surrounded by people who expect things to fall into place naturally? Are you surrounded by people who are not open to taking risks? Are you surrounded by people who are happy with the mundane life and that is not what you want? Then you need to expand your reality. You need to expose yourself to different things and different people of different walks of life so that you can understand what is possible. And delays doesn't necessarily mean that it's being denied. Also, some delays are blessings in disguise. So again, you need to be open to the possibilities and you need to take ownership of what you can have control over and let that lead the way. Are you in a stage of your life where you feel a bit lost and you don't know what you're doing or where you're going? Drop a comment and let me know what you're struggling with. Or lastly, you're thinking, okay, well, that's all good and well what you're saying, but how can I stop myself from comparing myself to others? Start with having self-compassion. Stop shaming yourself for where you're at now and start embracing where you're at now and seeing that as growth, opportunities for growth, opportunities for difference and change. You need to look at the bigger picture rather than focusing on the negative or what is going wrong or what it is that you don't have right now. The more you focus on what you don't have, that is taking away from what you do have, because then you are operating in a space of scarcity and not operating in a space of gratitude. Right? Because there's a lot that we can be grateful for. If you are watching this video, then most likely you either have a smartphone, you've got a TV, you've got internet connection, right? And that is already a lot what some people don't have. So what I would encourage you to do as a first step is conduct a social media detox. I would unfollow and mute any account that makes you feel triggered or makes you feel bad. And instead, follow accounts that normalize your experience and make you feel seen and heard, or even inspired or empowered. You need to create a feed that feeds you, that energizes you, and that are aligned with where you're at right now and where you're inspired to be in the future. Be your own vision board. Be creative. Think outside of the box and identify your values and what is important to you. And identify the practical steps that you can take that will take you closer to those values. Identify steps that you are completely in control over and commit to daily small steps towards this. Make it measurable and don't overwhelm yourself. But the underlying thing here is having commitment and intention. That is the bare minimum that you can do for yourself. Because once you are committed, the likelihood of you letting yourself down will be slimmer. And once you are committed, you will find ways to make things more sustainable and more manageable for yourself. Because you're committed to the cause, right? And whatever that comes your way that is hindering you from that, or that's getting in the way of that, you will reduce naturally, or you will cut out completely because it no longer serves you. And most importantly, celebrate small wins. Keep track of the things that you do. Keep track of what you've overcome, no matter how small. If you struggle, for example, to get out of bed in the mornings, right? If you're not an early riser and it's important for you in order to be more productive to wake up early in the day, and you have managed to do that eventually, honor that, celebrate that. That's a win. And track your progress, no matter how small, because movement does not have to look like major leaps, right? It takes small steps in the right direction. And before you know it, you turn around and you see all the progress you have made. But that does not happen overnight. Join a community of like-minded people. For my one-to-one coaching clients, I have a community platform that you can join that is included in the fee, where you would be able to connect with others who are in similar stages that you're at. And you can become accountability partners, right? And you can encourage each other to keep going, motivate each other inspire each other, and create a sense of community. If you want to join my community and you think you can benefit from my one-to-one support and guidance, you can go to my website and drop me a message. It is very simple. Go to my contact me page, fill in the box, and that will be delivered straight into my inbox. And lastly, before we close for today, you have options and agency to define what your life looks like. You may just need a little bit of guidance or someone to hold your hand. If you find this video helpful, then you probably find my other video helpful that I made not too long ago. I will link it up here or somewhere here, and that is a video about creating a community of like-minded people if you currently feel quite isolated or by yourself whilst you're figuring things out. So thank you so much for watching today, and see you later. Bye bye.